serving that role as a fire break really well, but it's also a plant that's super attractive and nutritious for deer and turkeys, and it can serve that attraction purpose and sneak around and find a gobbler coming to it to strut in or something like that.
I would guess that the majority of the turkeys that I've killed, I have used a fire break at some point in that hunt.
Welcome to Wild Turkey Science, a podcast made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow. I'm Dr. Marcus Lashley, Professor of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Florida.
And I'm Dr. Will Gulsby, Professor of Wildlife Ecology and Management at Auburn University. We're both lifelong hunters and devoted scientists who are passionate about hunting, managing, and researching wild turkeys.
In this podcast, we'll explore turkey research, speak to the experts in the field, and address the difficult questions related to wild turkey ecology and management.
Our goal
is to serve as your connection to wild turkey science.
Yeah, you miscounted by about 12 seconds.
Oh, I was early?
All those really crazy good ideas you just had.
Yeah.
Completely lost to the world.
Lost to the ether, and I'll never remember them again either.
Yeah, so that one grandiose point that would save turkeys completely that you just made, can you repeat that?
That didn't come from my head. I did have a listener tell me recently that we talk too much at the start of these episodes.
Well, I've had two listeners that told me that we didn't talk enough.
Well, that's what I told him too. I have heard people say that they enjoy the back and forth, but
yeah,
he definitely did not. He wants us to jump right in with both feet.
So he wants us to not be listenable. We already aren't for a lot of people.
He's just coming on, and he wants to get his advice, and he's eager to get back out there and put it on the ground, I guess.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could get Charlotte to start putting a stopper in there.
Yeah.
When does the good stuff start, Charlotte? If you could mark that in the YouTube episode so that folks can just skip ahead to that point.
My only concern is that on some episodes, it may never get to that point.
Yeah, it'd be funny if she had a couple of, in an episode, she puts the point way out at the end.
She's like, hey, guys, where did you get on topic?
Yeah, did you guys ever say anything worth listening to?
So
poor Charlotte.
This is gonna be a good one, and another really management relevant one. That was driven by a listener request.
Yeah, and we get a lot of questions about it and talk about it, and it's super relevant to everything we talk about from a habitat management standpoint, for sure. And we've never really put a lot of focus on it. So
it's just one of those logistical things that you don't think about talking about unless somebody asks you to.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to break the ice, or you want me to?
Well, I was going back to the emails to see if I could find the listener so that I could give him credit for that. It was from a listener, Ben Allgood, and he said, I'm trying to condense it down. He wrote a good bit. Basically, he asked for input on when to use green fire breaks, disked fire breaks, blown in, and so forth. So that would be helpful.
Nice.
So when do you use different fire breaks and why?
I think that's a great question to dive in on. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Looks like you're still checking email or something.
Well, I'm making sure I turn it off so it doesn't ding the whole time like it just did.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great question. And it's one of those times that a lot of creativity. There's a lot of slack, I think, as Craig said, in this and what you're using and why and where. So what I normally think, principally, the fire break has to be good at what it's supposed to do, which is make fire stay where it's supposed to be so that you can burn safely. So that is the key consideration first. But the type of fire break that you use can vary quite substantially. Sometimes on a side, you may not need one. Maybe you already have a fire break because there's a big lake there or something, right? Like, utilize features that are already inherent to the property. Maybe it's a road or a ditch or whatever.
Maybe it's just a hardwood forest and you don't have conditions where that'll even burn.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've got lots of ways that can be, but when you're deliberate with them, I like to consider. I think one thing that's not considered enough, I would say, I guess, that comes to mind to me immediately is those fire breaks can provide some really great opportunity for hunting and also for productivity. And I think, trying to integrate them into the landscape so that they make the property more huntable and they potentially add to productivity of your turkey population or key considerations that you should think about. Some ways that you can do that, he mentioned in that message a green fire break. Well, what does that mean? Well, usually what we're talking about is you might disc a fire line. Maybe that's in down along a roadside or a daylighted road, ideally, where you're getting full sun and part of it. It could be a woods road or a fifth row and thin or, something like that, where you're disking an area and then you're going to sow it to something that's attractive. I really love, like a fire break down the edge of a wood lot where you're going to get high turkey use to top sow that with crimson clover or something like that. And it can serve multiple purposes, right? So in that case, that green fire break, the plants, when they're green and growing, are not flammable. So you can burn right off of it or stop fire when it hits it. So it's serving that role as a fire break really well, but it's also a plant that's super attractive and nutritious for deer and turkeys, and it can serve that attraction purpose and, can be an excellent deer stand on it, that kind of thing, and sneak around and find a gobbler coming to it to strut in or something like that.
Yeah.
That's really what I think about when I'm thinking about a green fire break. We're deliberately placing those in a place that's key for hunting purposes or maybe productivity, depending on what you're doing. And you're deliberately using it as a fire break when the vegetation's too green to burn.
Yeah, I like that. I really like what you said too about how fire breaks can facilitate hunting. Because I'm sitting here thinking about it, and it's like, I would guess that the majority of the turkeys that I've killed, I have used a fire break at some point in that hunt.
Yeah, at least, even if it's just for sneaking around in the woods to get in position. But, setting up on them, especially if you've got something in there that's good, good eating and has good structure for strutting in, like that can be a really effective way.
Yeah. One of my favorite food plots, if you will, that I have ever hunted during the deer season anywhere. It was a really creative idea, and I'm sure we'll get into more of these as we kind of walk through this and think about it more. But there's an upland pine stand, kind of starts coming down the hill, transitions into hardwoods, and then you kind of got a hardwood slope, and then it went into like a hardwood flat. And then right there at the bottom of the slope where it transitions into the flat, there was a fire break there. The landowner opened up the fire break, so it was still just a lane that was separating the upland area that he burned from the bottomland hardwood forest, but he made it like 3 or 4 times wider than he needed to with a dozer. And then that ended up being a clover like strip food plot, and it was 300 yards long. And it joined the uplands to the bottomland area, right? So you already see where this is going, and you could imagine how much of a stopover point it was. But I remember like several afternoons and mornings sitting on that strip food plot and having like multiple deer and turkeys all in view, just lined up down the food plot at once. I mean, at one point I remember I was hunting out there, and there was like a nice like 110-inch ish, like 3.5-year-old 8-point out there, and a couple of turkeys, a doe group with a couple of fawns in it, and it was like Noah's Ark, down through there. And so that lane was not only helping them burn, but it was also serving that purpose as well.
Well, and that's also it's often conducive to I was saying sneaking around, but you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of alluding to the same thing. Like you can get up and down out of the stand with deer in the plot, or get set up on it a little down the way from a turkey that's already in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's giving you a nice vantage point to kind of sneak up on them and get in position when you already know they're present.
Right.
So I definitely think that can be really effective. And, a lot of people are doing that. I see that kind of stuff done, really commonly
Mm-hmm.
on the landscape. But I think the thing I'm trying to impress upon you is not just taking advantage of it somewhere and making a food plot, but be strategic about it and try to set that up so that it's maximizing the huntability of it.
Yeah.
So, just be aware that can be an effective food plot. And even in the case, let's say you're going to burn at a time when the stuff that you had planted is fallow and it's still flammable. Well, it's still setting you up to go in and disc, a line really easily. Right. It's making it logistically easier for you. And I've seen people do that too, where they're just coming along the edge of a food plot and putting in a disc line or, something along those lines to make sure that it's going to hold the fire. And it's just setting it up for you to do that easily.
Right. Right.
So one of the ones that I saw that I've seen that was so effective, there's in this particular location, there's a CRP field that was originally what it got planted as, and now it's just managed as early succession in perpetuity. And there's a couple of 100-yard long strip that's probably 15 yards wide, 20 yards wide, that's planted in a cereal grain and a clover mix. And the others, well, I guess right along it is a road, where they drive in and out, and then it transitions into this upland hardwood forest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been such an effective setup because, of the way that it's positioned on the landscape. There's excellent roosting right next to it. There's excellent nesting and brooding cover directly adjacent and bedding for deer during the deer season. And it's just set up so nice.
Right.
And it's playing such an important role because they're burning really frequently in that field.
Right.
And it's allowing them to do that easily. But, it's set up such that it's really effective for hunting.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a cool setup.
Yeah.
So the gold standard of Firebreaks, I guess we could go to next, a bladed line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess short of, like you said, a natural, geological feature or something like that. Like if you've got a lake or a big river or something, of course, that's going to be a nice natural firebreak to have. But a bladed line is really kind of the gold standard, put in with a dozer. And a lot of folks can get help with doing that, free or at least relatively low cost. Sometimes from the State Forestry Commission, NRCS has programs that reimburse landowners for putting in those types of fire breaks as well. So there are some options to get some help with that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, like with a fire plow, it's a really aggressive thing. So it's establishing mineral soil, which is that gold standard for, breaking fuel.
Yeah.
But that can be really aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think about it. I'm trying to reduce the soil disturbance and disruption as much as possible, because sometimes that can invite invasive species and just erosion issues, that kind of stuff. And I would encourage people to think about that when you're putting these in. You want it to be an established fire break that you can maintain over a long term, but you want to try to do that with the least aggressive practice you can do it effectively with.
Yeah.
So sometimes those fire plows that, they're really digging a furrow in there, in the ground, and it's changing things for a long time.
Yeah, I've never
So,
really burned off of one of those plowed with a fire plow. Mostly what I'm talking about is when people just come in and blade, with the dozer and just take off the top surface. But it's still a high level of disturbance. Yeah.
yeah, but not like the fire plow where
Right.
you're really, that's a really aggressive
Right.
approach. And I have burned in that context because some agencies use that as their go-to tool.
Yeah.
And I think the bladed line or a disc line, if it's mineral soil, can be just as effective.
Yeah.
And it's less aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's kind of you saying that made me think through that.
Right.
I'm trying to rank them
Right.
based on several criteria, and one of them is how aggressive is the practice in
Yeah.
terms of what how it's altering things.
Yeah. And I guess one thing that the listener kind of implied that he wanted to know about that we maybe haven't been answering is what scenarios each would be most effective in, or like what are the pros and cons of it. And
one of the least aggressive, other than just taking advantage of a natural feature that we haven't talked about at all, is blowing a line out.
Yeah.
And I was going to go directly to what context is that really effective in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's where you were going.
Well, we could go there. Let's just lay them all out. We talked about green firebreaks, which often are naturally vegetated or planted. And obviously you burn when the vegetation is living, because that's ideally when it's not going to carry fire.
Not green because you spray painted
it. Just to be clear, sometimes we get weird questions. So we got that. We've got natural features, roads, of course, we're gonna take advantage of those. Creeks we're gonna take advantage of. And then you've got like one that's created with a fire plow or a dozer blade. You've got a blown in line with like a backpack leaf blower that you just brought up, and then you've got a disked line. I've probably burned more off of disked lines than anything else that I've ever burned off of.
That's really common, really effective.
And because most landowners have that tool at their disposal. And then a wet line. A wet line is the last one I thought about.
Yeah. And that one's a little more, a little trickier.
Yeah.
But it can be really effective, and especially in places that you can't get equipment.
Yeah, and most of the time when I burn off a wet line, and just to be clear, what we're talking about with that is, you've got some kind of water source, whether that it could be as simple as something like a backpack sprayer, all the way up to a big tractor-mounted sprayer. But you're essentially lighting the fire and putting it out so that it can only burn in the direction that you want it to.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you light a fire, it burns outward from that spot, and you're putting out the fire that's going the wrong way.
Right. And so for the most part, when I burn off a wet line, it's when I'm burning around a shooting house or a utility box on the side of the road or something like that, just to try to consume that fuel so I don't accidentally burn up that feature.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a big white oak you want to just be real cautious around, or something. But another sort of a variation of that, there are some products, it's not usually used by a landowner necessarily, but like a fire retardant, that people will basically establish a line of that whatever product that they have and burn off of it. And the idea is it's wet and not flammable.
Right.
So it's not allowing the fire to progress in one direction. The other thing that I have seen and grown more appreciation for, especially working with some of these landowners in the Red Hills quail country, is using a rake. And a lot of the time they will have like a Bahia grass road
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a little path through the woods, that they're using to
Just
to
a
get
little
around
woods
on the
road.
landscape.
Yeah.
And it's a really effective way to manage those so you're not tearing up your road. They basically just run a hay rake down
Mhm.
the road and remove all that thatch, and then it essentially takes all the dead thatch that would be flammable away. And now everything that's left is still green, and it's kind of serving that green fire break
Yeah.
purpose. But really effective way to decrease, the probability of a fire creeping across it.
Mhm.
If it's bahia, it's already not very flammable, but that just kind of sews it up.
Yeah.
And that I've done that quite a few times now, and that's a really effective way. That's not causing a bunch of soil disturbance.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, going back to the bladed line, I mean, by far, my favorite thing about burning off of a bladed line is that it's safe. Like as safe as you can be from getting having spotting. So that's something that I really want to employ in an area that I know that I'm going to burn fairly aggressively. Like if for some reason I know that's part of my objectives for burning that unit, that I'm going to burn it when conditions are volatile.
Yeah, or
Or conducive to
otherwise a
high
high
fire
risk.
intensity. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
there's something really sensitive on the other side of it. You're right.
Right. Yeah.
A place that we really don't need to get into. Like a perfect example comes to mind for me for a couple of years ago where I wish I'd had a bladed line to burn off of. We were burning next to another landowner's 2-year-old loblolly pine plantation. And it was during wintertime, and that field was full of dead broom sedge. So if it hopped that line, I mean, it was just going to rip across through those loblolly pines and kill every single one of them. And we were burning off a little squirrel trail of a fire break, and it started getting over into them. And I had a moment of panic. We got it put out. We jumped on it really quick. But if we, I mean, some of that was luck. And if we hadn't gotten there soon enough, and it gotten a little size to it, there's no way we were getting in front of it. So those are all good situations to have a bladed line. The other thing that I like about a bladed line is that oftentimes, you turn them into roads.
Yeah.
Those basically become new roads and give you all the access that we just talked about, from sneaking around and hunting to being able to get your tractor in places to do work and spray invasives or plant or whatever else you need to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. What have we missed? The blowing.
Yeah.
Blowing out lines. I like that a lot. It's particularly effective in upland hardwoods.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how easy it is to just take that leaf blower and just get down to mineral soil.
Man, you can knock it out fast too.
Yeah. Pine straw is
and
much harder to do.
Yeah.
It mats.
And especially if you have a developed understory, then it's more difficult to use that.
Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. But usually I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times in upland hardwoods, you've got a relatively open understory, and that leaf litter is easy to blow off, and you're more likely to be able to use that effectively as a tool. And I have burned units, just to be clear, where all of the lines were blown.
Me too.
Like we just had a couple people with a backpack blower walking around blowing the lines in, and then burn right off of them. And that's it's getting down to mineral soil, super effective and quick, and it's low impact on the environment. You're not inviting invasive problems or anything.
Well, that's the other great thing, that it works in hardwoods, because usually hardwoods have a lot more topography to them. Yeah. So you're not having to worry about going side hill with a disc or a dozer.
Yeah, and we can cut in some footage. I did this, actually, Zach, that we had on recently, that may have been his first time burning in upland hardwoods. And we were up with Craig recording for our habitat management module online. And of course, true Craig fashion, he's like, well, while I got y'all here, can you help me burn these woods? So we went out there and burned some upland hardwood stands, but that's exactly what we did. We went in there and blew out the fire lines, and then set it on fire, and had a good time doing it.
Yeah.
But it's such an effective way to establish a fire break in those kinds of systems where you have a lot of topography and you do, I mean, using equipment, like heavy equipment, it's not an option.
Oh yeah, I mean, like some of those blown-in lines that I've put in, you can barely walk between the trees in some of the places, much
Yeah.
less get a vehicle in there.
Yeah, or you're, in the mountains on the side of a mountain.
Right.
You're not going to go up the hill with that
Yep.
with a tractor.
Yep.
So
I've done a lot of burning off blown-in lines too. You got to take your time. You got to take your time with it. You got to babysit them a little bit more. It's not as, I like to refer to it as bomb-proof. It's not as bomb-proof as a bladed line or a really good disc line, but it can be darn effective for a lot of the reasons we just mentioned. And to add to that too, all you guys out there that are burn practitioners, if you don't have like either a good battery powered or a handheld gas powered, you can use a backpack blower if you want to. It's just heavy and cumbersome, but I like the little handheld gas powers or the new electric ones they have. Those things will run pretty long. Or you can even carry a few spare batteries with you, because I think I've got 3 or 4 batteries for mine. They're great for fighting fire too. If you get a little bit of a jump, there have been many occasions where I've gone around a little bit of a spot and just, created my new little fire break and put it out that way.
Yep. Super effective.
Great tool to have on the fire line.
Yep. I agree.
Disc lines. We've talked about them several times already today. That's kind of like in my hierarchy going downhill from, like if I can't burn on a big stream or I can't burn on a bladed line or something else that's really bomb-proof like that, a disc line is probably where a lot of landowners find that they hit that kind of optimal point of effectiveness combined with cost-effective, right? Effective to burn off of, but also cost-effective.
Yeah. And also feasible in a lot of different contexts as well. And it's also logistically feasible because a lot of people already have that gear.
Yeah.
To make that happen. So this I would say, aside from using natural features, burning up against something that's not flammable that you already have in the landscape, that's probably the most common thing that I see and that I use even is a disc line. So it can be very effective. And, I would say that's sort of moderate in terms of, how aggressive it is.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I don't like about disking is some of the times of the year that you might be disking to burn, you're inviting some plants that are not desirable into those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen that multiple times where people have, which I see the same thing for roads, where you've got a woods road or something, but it's just it's an invasion point.
Yeah.
Where you end up with some weeds that you don't want to colonize.
Yeah. Right.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to go through that hierarchy, thinking about trying to be less aggressive, because, if you're going disc in May, probably going to get some stuff you don't want colonizing that.
Yeah.
So, that might be a good time to think about something else that's disturbing the soil less, because the timing is not really a good time for that.
That's a really good point, because, I'm veering off topic a little bit, but I think it's valuable enough that our listeners will appreciate it. But something that I've been thinking about some lately is you and I have been talking and doing a lot of field management for turkeys recently and coming up with questions that we didn't even know we needed answers to until we started doing a whole lot more of this. It has given me a huge appreciation for trying to manage for native forbs in areas that are either currently forested or that were just recently deforested to create a field, because it's a blank slate. And that makes you realize, like, y'all think about it. You go out in your field and you disc and you start trying to encourage all this native early succession that we talk about for your turkeys. And you have to peel back those layers of invasives. It's like, I killed this, now I got that. I killed this, now I got that. I mean, what gives? When is this going to end? It is because of what Marcus just described is that field has some of it was probably introduced intentionally previously, right? But then part of it too is just because that being a field and getting disturbed many, many times over the years, depending on how old it is, has given the opportunity for those invasive species to take hold.
Yeah. Well, and think about the land use history. People may not even realize a lot of our ground used to be a cotton field. Might have been 100 years ago. So that
Or an
was
overgrazed pasture.
yeah, a lot of it has been that for a long time. Some of our areas there's not even topsoil left
Yeah.
because it eroded because of some of the land use practices, and
Well,
there's
that's a
nothing we can
lot of
do
the
about.
South, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot we can do about it in many of those cases, but it's definitely adding all these non-native species that have been introduced over the last several decades. There's lots of issues, and you've got to understand that issue and then try to figure out a plan. And some of that is trial and error because your context might do different than the next hill over or the next landowner over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a challenge, and you and I have lamented about this, the difficulties of trying to get the field management right across all the different contexts that we see all the time. It's just a real challenge.
Yeah, the
because of
past use history, the soil quality, the moisture regime on the field, like what surrounds it, all those things.
yeah
So, but yeah, the disc line, I mean, it can be an effective fire containment tool. The one limitation that I will say that it has is if you're going through, kind of like we were talking about with the blower, there's an area that has a lot of undergrowth, it's going to be difficult, especially like around fields that have a lot of grass that, that thatch is very difficult to get rid of. You may have to disc it multiple times, and even then you still may not have a continuous layer of mineral soil.
yeah
But adequate for containment in a lot of cases.
for sure.
What are we missing?
Well, I think I don't know if we necessarily have addressed the questions as directly as may have been
Yeah.
wanted, but I feel like we were just we got into more of making sure you go through these P's and Q's about how to make a fire break effective.
Yeah.
So, and one thing I see it fairly commonly, and you kind of reminded me of it. When you're getting ready to burn, run around your fire breaks again, even if you put them in last week.
Yeah.
Like, make sure that a tree didn't fall across it, or
Yeah.
you didn't have a bunch of leaves blow on it or something. I've had that happen a few times, or had people tell me about it where they had a jump because they didn't, they put their fire break in yesterday and they didn't go around it before they lit today, and something had happened that they didn't expect. Just make sure you go check it one last time.
I'll give you my other words of wisdom related to that you jogged my memory on is go around the fire break and look for dead trees too. If you have a snag right on your fire break and it catches on fire and falls outside of your fire break, that's a bad day. So you don't necessarily have to fell those snags, but you might want to go around and use your blower to blow out around those snags before you light off so that you don't end up having to deal with that. Nothing else. There's nothing that'll ruin a good burn day like catching a snag on fire.
Well, and that's some of these tools we've talked about, raking around it or using your blower, blow out around it.
Yeah.
Would be really effective.
But even then, I will say that there's been some times where I've caught snags on fire 20 feet off the ground. Like, it's not coming in from the bottom, it's embers catching the higher branches all on fire. So
it's something good to make note of.
Yeah.
When you have a snag in a stand that has a sneaky way of causing trouble.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. I mean, it's probably rudimentary for some of y'all, but I know there's a lot of folks just now starting to get into fire and thinking through these questions, and I think that'll be really helpful to you as you go forward. And if y'all have any follow-up questions to that, obviously feel free to reach out and let us know.
Yeah. Well, like you said, people are coming. We've got an audience across the whole spectrum of experience and knowledge in land management. And I'm glad that we do. I'm glad that we've got people out there interested in trying to manage and, trying to get into some of this nitty gritty like this. I'm sure that we could have covered it more thoroughly. But, with that being said, we have a lot of knowledgeable people in our audience, and, take a moment to drop us a comment if we missed something, or you've got an experience that's relevant, or a different practice that might be widely usable or effective for people, something that we missed. We have people commonly do that in the comment section anyway, but just kind of think of it from that perspective. We're not perfect. We can't squeeze everything into, an episode either. And also, we haven't seen every context or every technique. So think about that as an opportunity for you to share your experience and teach people so that we can get more fire on the ground. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately, I hope everybody listening to this realizes that fire is a tool that can be really effective to improve things for turkeys. And generally speaking, we'd like a lot more people to get engaged and start using it to make turkey habitat.
Yep. And we're paying attention to y'all's questions too. That was one of the ones listeners submitted to wildturkeyscience@gmail.com. So if y'all have other ones, feel free to hit that up. And Charlotte, our producer, keeps a good eye on that, and then she'll send them over to us periodically.
Yeah, she sends them all the time.
I get back to as many of them as I can, but not all that I would like. So we're doing our best, but we are paying attention. We are reading it.
Yeah, it's definitely not all of them, but a lot of times what we do is what we did here, where we see questions and we don't necessarily respond to everyone, but we're kind of keeping a tally. And when we get to a level like this, like, man, we really got to do one on Firebreaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's because we've gotten a bunch of questions about this.
Yeah. And I will say, too, though, that there are some of those that we never respond to, or because we've covered them in previous episodes, if not multiple times.
Yeah. We try to direct people to those, or we hold them and try to address them online when there's a lot of people that want to know about it.
Yeah. Like I saw a question from a few days ago that a listener submitted about, what does the hen do? Like, go into detail about the laying process and the nesting process. Well, we did all that in that relatively recent episode where you were reading through some of Lovett's observations.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can link that episode for that listener.
Yeah.
So we're not ignoring you, but we're also trying to be efficient with our time. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I know one thing, we're really glad to have the listeners and so much activity and so many things coming in, because it really helps us stay motivated and on track to deliver things that people want to hear about.
Yep. 100%.
All right. Well, I hope you can stay cool because it's hot outside here.
I'm trying.
Yeah. We're our turkeys in the facility, man. They're, we've got plenty of shade and water and everything for them.
Yeah.
They're in a good situation, but it's just so hot.
Yeah.
Like they're just, you can see that effect on their face. And
I'll tell you what's been frustrating me lately is, I have that lab puppy. I mean, she's 16 months old, so basically still a puppy, Yeah. And it's so hot right now, I can't take her out and play with her for more than 5 minutes before she's just completely blown out,
Yep.
But that's not enough. It's just enough to get her hot, but it's not enough to get all her energy out, So once she recovers 10 minutes later inside the house, she's bouncing off the walls again. And that's been driving me crazy. And, we take her down to the lake and stuff, but I'll tell you what, man, the first few feet of the lake right now aren't much better. They're like about 90 degrees until you get down to 5 or 6 feet right now. So it's not very helpful either.
Yeah, our pool's over 90 degrees. I looked at it yesterday.
God. Insane.
Like taking a bath.
That's gross. All right. Let's get out of here.
All right.
We veered way too
Thanks,
far off.
everybody. Thanks for all the support.
Wild Turkey Science is part of the Natural Resources University podcast network and is made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow, a grassroots organization dedicated to the wild turkey. To learn more about TFT, check out turkeysfortomorrow.org.